Greetings to you. I present to your attention the latest news of the world. The undeclared civil war raging in the West is approaching a kind of climax in the form of a mega black swan. The White Hats are trying to bankrupt psychopaths and all their us government shows. The psychos are planning some kind of mass murder to try to stay in power. Both sides can use seismic weapons and other electromagnetic forms of influence. The only thing that can be said for sure is a large firework display. Previous attempts to bankrupt the American corporation were postponed due to events such as September 11th, and the Fukushima massacre on March 11, 2011, and the tsunami. This time, signs of either a powerful earthquake or some kind of electromagnetic attack are planned, which will be caused by a solar flare. That is why decisive action must be taken against the leadership of the Hazar group before they can stage another mass sacrifice. By the way, March 11th is the 13th anniversary of the Fukushima attack. Most of the criminals, such as the High Jesuit Gans Kolwenbach, were hunted down and eliminated soon after. However, two of the masterminds, self-proclaimed chief Satanist Leo Zagami and Israeli minister Benjamin Netanyahu, are still at large. They are being tracked down and will be brought to justice. However, the war between the two factions is complicated by the presence of fraudulent eye. This allows the Hazar group to use its control over the Silicon Valley computer complex to create computer graphics leaders rather than relying on surgically altered avatars. According to CIA sources, California Governor Adam Newsom is a GGI created by artificial intelligence. Computers can now elect these fakes to office by electronically stealing elections. As another example, you can watch Adam Schiff stealing votes from his opponent. In another example, you can see Speaker Johnson talking to reporters after a meeting at the White House with Biden and Schumer. This is Tyler Perry's TV at the White House in Atlanta. There are no nearby buildings near the real White House. People don't buy it anymore. That's why less than 10% of Americans watched Joe Biden's State of the Union address. No wonder that's what happens when Joe starts talking incoherently. We have increased the national debt more than any president in his term in history. In the background is Kamala Harris in a mask. You can see that the mask is literally breathing on its own. The most striking example of eye abuse is the existence of two Donald Trumps. The real one is located at an underground military base in Mount Cheyenne, Colorado, and is waging a military campaign against the Khazars. Immediate execution is called a military tribunal. This is exactly what happened to Victoria Nuland, the de facto president of Ukraine. Official statements say she has resigned, but our CIA sources say she was executed along with her husband Robert Kagan, the architect of the Iraq War. Vladimir Zelensky may also have been killed by a rocket in Odessa, but nevertheless he is finished, and everyone knows it. In addition, just as this report was about to be published, French generals contacted the White Dragon Society and reported that a military coup was taking place against French President Emmanuel Macron Rothschild. This was caused by the fact that Macron ordered the military to begin the massacre of civilians and send troops to Ukraine. Macron then threatened the Bush with a heart attack device. However, killing Cousteau would have made no difference, since no French general obeys Macron. They are with the farmers and the French. The fall of Macron will put an end to the rule of the Rothschilds in France. No matter what, the entire fake presidential and European political theater of the United States is about to be closed. A hint of this appeared when the new financial report of the US government, February 2024, recognized that Social Security and Medicare are underfunded by $175 trillion. If you add that to the $34 trillion debt, you'll see that the U.S. government is $209 trillion underwater. This figure has already been announced by private economists and the US Federal Reserve Bank in St. Louis. An important point is that the Ministry of Finance officially recognizes the American corporation as de facto bankrupt. Add to this the fact that the Fed's bank rescue program ends this month. Also note that the measures to keep the U.S. government working will only last until the middle of this month. Then add that all the billionaires are selling their shares and buying underground shelters. From this, we can conclude that some important financial announcement is coming. Our own sources in the Japanese royal family say that the financial black swan is scheduled for March 15th. Sources in the Rothschild family report that all bank accounts will be reset, and each person will receive a one-time deposit of $500,000. Billionaires and millionaires will lose money, but for 90% of people it will be a godsend. Such an event is necessary because the income needed to afford a home in the United States has increased by 80% since 2020. Homebuyers should earn more than $106,000 a year today, which is $47,000 more than in 2020, and this change is mainly due to higher prices and borrowing costs. This is further proof that the current financial system is no longer working and needs to be rebooted. However, we are not sure if the Rothschilds are capable of organizing such an event. Sources in the Japanese royal family report that when Princess Mako left the royal family, she received a severance check signed by David Rothschild, who died 15 years ago. The inventor of the quantum financial system says, "Someone is trying to cheat my property." Obviously, there is still a debate about who will control the financial system. All we know for sure is that the United States cannot continue like this. Most likely, military action will be required to solve this problem. On this front, we have evidence that a massive attack on Silicon Valley is being planned. The Gnostic Illuminati say they have no choice but to destroy the computer connection in Silicon Valley with a powerful earthquake in order to flood it into the ocean. There is no doubt that Silicon Valley is under attack. Recently, there have been strong earthquakes and unusually high waves that hit the coast of California. Facebook, Instagram, and Messenger also experienced massive internet outages that affected the entire west coast of the United States. In particular, the Rockefeller Mark Zuckerberg Meta representation. The White Dragon Society claims that sending special forces to capture the headquarters of Google, Apple, Microsoft, etc. This will cause much less collateral damage than using earthquakes or electromagnetic weapons. There is also the possibility of an entire internet shutdown, and talk of a massive solar flare shows that it is planned. As this headline says, NASA is preparing for an internet apocalypse, as a giant solar storm could hit Earth by 2025. You mean you're going to blame a solar storm for the collapse of the power grid? The Khazarian group also hires foreign mercenaries to try to keep the American people from revolting. Mention of this was found in the latest report on the US labor market. As Zero Hedge reports, last month we thought the January labor market report was the most ridiculous in recent history, but damn it, we were wrong, because this morning Biden's Department of Targeted Advocacy, aka BLS, released the February labor market report, and damn it, it was something other things. Even Goebbels would blush. The most important thing for me was that in the last 3 months, almost 2.4 million local workers have lost their jobs. At the same time, a record number of migrant workers were hired in February alone, 1.2 million, mostly illegal. You can be sure that most of them were hired by the government as mercenaries to fight the American people. These are the people they hire. The brother of the migrant accused of murdering nursing student Laken Riley is on trial for possession of a fake ID, and he is linked to the vicious Venezuelan gang behind the frightening wave of violence. Florida Sheriff Grady Judd reports that illegal sex workers receive an identity card and documents from the Department of Homeland Security that allow them to travel the United States for free at the expense of taxpayers. All you have to do is pay your DHS pimps a weekly fee of $3,000. The United States is mired in impunity, corruption, and unrest. Endless streams of migrants are storming the southern borders of the United States, and many of them are not Latin Americans at all. They come from regions that have become victims of the neo-imperialist wars unleashed by Washington. As at the feast in the house of the Babylonian king Belshazzar, God has numbered your kingdom and completed it. You were weighed on the scales and considered inadequate. Daniel chapter 5 verses 25 to 27, says Lieutenant General of the FSB of Russia L. Reshetnikov. He adds, "The flourishing diversity of the world is being replaced by a conflict between two models of government that exist only in American fantasies." The head of MI6 agrees, stating that the common goal of Russia and Britain is the final defeat of world fascism by a government controlled by corporations and the sovereignty of the people. On Thursday, the Russian Foreign Ministry asked the US ambassador to Moscow, Lynn Tracy, to explain that any attempts to interfere in Russia's internal affairs, including acts of sabotage and the spread of disinformation, will be strictly suppressed. It is a pity that they did not demand to do the same for the United States. As Field Marshal Douglas Macgregor says, "When I listen to comments coming from the Senate or the House of Representatives, not to mention the White House, I am reminded of the famous statement in Vietnam, To save the village, we had to destroy it. I got the impression that this is Washington's plan. We must destroy the country to save it. The Hazara group is also making every effort to starve us all out, or at least subjugate us. The EU has just confirmed the statement by the former president of the Club of Rome, Călin Georgescu, that the Khazars are planning a food crisis for 2025. Last month, about 60 European Union and government officials, food safety experts, industry representatives, and some journalists gathered to discuss the possibility of what was hardly a rumor a few years ago, a full-scale food crisis. The conference assumes that there will be food shortages in Europe between 2024 and 2025. It should be remembered that similar exercises were held shortly before the pandemic in 2020. In other words, they are trying to drive farmers in Europe to bankruptcy in order to provoke a food crisis. In the USA, as a result of the DU attack on Texas, 80% of cattle pastures were destroyed. Now, utility company Xcel Energy says its facilities appear to have played a role in igniting a massive fire in the Texas Panhandle that has grown into the largest fire in the state's history. Look at who owns Xcel: BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. A document from their other subsidiary, the UN, explains why they want us to suffer from hunger. Hunger is important for the economy because it creates cheap labor, says a 2008 UN article titled The Benefits of Hunger in the World. No one works harder than hungry people, the report says. European farmers will not allow this. Czech farmers dump manure in front of government offices. Belgian farmers spray police with sewage. The largest army in Europe now is the peasants. Russia will also make sure that there is enough food. President Vladimir Putin declares that the food of Russia's future does not consist of beetles and moths. As in the West, the White Hats also eliminate additional Hazara agents. Here are some examples. Rapper P. Diddy is now accused of human trafficking, like Jeffrey Epstein, of recruiting minors and extortion from RICO. Britney Spears and Justin Bieber could be victims. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is accused of dying in nursing homes by making him sing like a canary, showing off his puppet masters. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is the first head of state of a Western nation to be tried at the International Criminal Court, in accordance with Article 15 of the Rome Statute. This is a real problem, the Pentagon said in a statement. The Canadian police are also finally hunting for Justin Castrudo. The last straw was the following. As a result of the Bryce Project, 182 charges were filed, 20 arrests were made, and about $61 million worth of banned substances were seized. However, according to Canadian intelligence, Castrudo ordered the gangsters to be released and the powder returned to them. Is Castrudo a criminal? RCMP seems to think it might be him. It is obvious that he is under investigation with little pressure from the WH Alliance, a Mossad source comments. We also note that the White Hats now appear to control a masked avatar who impersonates Pope Francis. This pope caused a hysterical reaction among the puppet politicians of the Hazara group, who identified themselves as calling for the continuation of the war, when he called on Ukraine to have the courage to raise the white flag. An uprising against globalization broke out in the UK Parliament, when MP Andrew Bridgen asked, "Why is the United Kingdom transferring sovereign powers to an unelected, unaccountable, diplomatically immunized organization, the Director General of who was appointed by an unholy alliance of Bill Gates and the Communist Party of China?" A petition calling for a debate on this issue was not satisfied, although it easily reached 100,000 votes. The signature threshold has been reached. Member of the House of Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene contributed when she told BBC News anchor Emily Maitlis to "fuck off," after the latter tried to brand her as a conspiracy theorist. Note that it was the BBC that mentioned Jewish space lasers. We also note that high-ranking General Netanyahu will soon leave this world. French journalist Thierry Meisson reports, Netanyahu, the son of Vladimir Jabotinsky's personal secretary, did not hesitate to compare the Palestinians with the ancient Amalekites. This means that all of them must be exterminated. Jabotinsky's revisionist Zionists are those who claim sovereignty over all territories from the Nile to the Euphrates. Netanyahu is outraged by the trip to Washington of the Minister of the Military Cabinet, Benny Gantz, and tells him that there is only one prime minister. Oh, Bibi's avatar is really nervous. It seems that a deal has been made with the Hazara group, Deep State in the District of Columbia, to kick him off the bus. I sense a split in the ranks of Israel, a Mossad source comments. The rest of the world is calling for action. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, called the war in Gaza a disgrace to civilization. He was speaking at the big annual Chinese political meeting. To confirm that China has excluded the Khazars from its policy, it should be noted that, unlike the last such gathering, no one wears masks. Now, after the overthrow of the Khazar agent Ayatollah Khamenei, Iran is also taking an effective position, instead of trying to promote Armageddon. The head of Iran's judicial system, Gholam Hossein Mohseni, called on Muslim countries to sever relations with Israel and sue the occupation regime in international courts for its crimes against the Palestinians. This is an example of a war criminal facing the death penalty. Rabbi Eliyahu Mali, head of the Shirat Moshe Yeshiva religious school in the occupied city of Jaffa, called on the Israeli army to kill all people in the Gaza Strip, including children. Of course, the Khazar group is still fighting to the bitter end. For example, they're still trying to get us all drunk with cocktails. We need to ensure that everyone gets an updated cocktail, says Mandy Cohen, director of CDC Hazara Puppets. They are also trying to suppress freedom of speech. Eduard Prells, director of Citizen Go in Germany, was found guilty of posting the image on his Facebook page. He currently has a criminal record and was sentenced to a fine of 6,000 euros. It is the judge who should go to jail in this case, and eventually he will go to jail too. It also seems that the Khazar group is now trying to use Moldova to launch its long-planned Third World War. The Republic of Moldova has signed an agreement on defense cooperation with France. As soon as this happened, Polish intelligence informed us. Pro-Russian rebels in Moldova's Transnistrian separatist region asked Russia for protection on Wednesday, fearing that the area could become a new hotbed of Moscow's conflict with neighboring Ukraine. A hint that Joe compared the current situation with the war in Ukraine from 1941 and himself with Franklin Roosevelt. Roosevelt, of course, led the reluctant U.S. population to World War I. As Polish intelligence informs us, there are very few Poles in the Polish government and Russians in the Russian one. Facts are facts. You could also add that there are no Americans in the U.S. corporate government. It looks like the Germans have had enough. This happened after the recent NATO exercise. The Steadfast Defenders was literally disrupted due to the Russians disabling all their high-tech GPS-guided weapons, according to German intelligence sources. They tell us, the German government has made a radical decision regarding energy production in Germany. Now hydrogen power plants must go down in history and finally solve the problem of high electricity costs and insufficient reliability of power supply. If this gigantic plan succeeds, Germany will be able to produce and even export electricity for pennies, even without taking into account natural gas, coal, and nuclear energy. Then they will no longer depend on other countries for electricity supplies. The new technology of hydrogen power plants has no analogs in the world. Germany is considered a world leader and an engine of innovation in this field. The new technology is basic, environmentally friendly, flexible, manageable, inexhaustible, and inexpensive. The perfect solution for our power grid. If the Germans unleash the hydrogen engine, it will put an end to polluting electric vehicles. The German magazine Stern reports that since March 2023, Tesla has already received warnings 5 times for exceeding the permissible amount of wastewater entering the environment. The switch to hydrogen will also deal a serious blow to China's plans to monopolize batteries important for electric vehicles. In China, 70,000 workers engaged in nickel mining work on the island of Sulawesi. China controls this industry. Since nickel is necessary for the production of batteries, this means that China is going to take full control of all batteries used in electric vehicles, etc. However, Japan may have the last word, along with Germany. Listen to why Toyota doesn't believe that electric cars will save the environment. Toyota also has all the technology needed to move into the hydrogen era. Finally, we would like to publish an anonymous statement that was sent to us by mail. Today we have no other choice but to face the truth. That our governments lie, that our countries are corporations, that our history has been hidden, that our religions are hypocritical, that our children have been sacrificed, that our split is being fueled, that our opinion is being manipulated, that our cancers can be cured, that our energy can be free, that everything in the outside world is not what we were told, and that therefore we are determined to find the truth, which we do every day and will continue to do until it becomes known. The truth will set us free.